Hello and welcome everyone to MadisonAlley.tv. Today we have two special guests, Laura Held and Juliette Morris. So for today's session, Juliette Morris is the CEO of Adweek. She's also the former CEO of TuneIn, a global streaming audio platform. And prior to Juliette joining TuneIn and then Adweek, she is the EVP of Partner Marketing and Communications at NBC Universal. Juliette, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Very nice. And soon, and joining us a little bit later in the session will be Laura Held. And Laura is a partner at Shamrock Capital and also a strategic investor in Adweek. Laura is also a board director, not only of Adweek, but of AnswerLab, Bayard, EDO, Highwire, and VidMob, and previously served on the boards of WPromote, which was just successfully acquired, Mobility, RB Media, and QuestX. Excited to have both Laura and Juliette joining us for a really interesting session today. So first, to begin, just a brief overview about Madison Alley. As many of you have come to know now, we are a strategic M&A and capital advisory group specifically focused and exclusively on digital marketing, media, advertising, technology, and commerce, and have been since our founding nearly 20 years from now. We're led by former strategic buyers and CEOs, and our mission is to develop and realize premium value for companies in this space. We're typically raising capital from $10 to $150 million, with M&A transactions from $25 to $500 million. We are reimagining how investment banking and the strategic M&A and capital process is undertook, and that's by fueling our clients with MadisonAlley.tv, which is bringing us extraordinary insights, and also a global distinguished network of global CEOs, CMOs, and other distinguished founders. And also Madison Alley Studio, which is our own proprietary in-house studio for digital creative production assets, resources. And then finally, Madison Alley Impact, which is our push towards philanthropic efforts and more impactful ways to support the community that we all live in. With that, we'll move on to today's exciting session. We'll begin with an overview of Juliette, and I'll learn a bit of a full overview of Adweek. We'll then hear from Julie about Adweek's audience and their advertisers and strategic sponsors, and then understand a bit more about Adweek's strategic growth opportunities. We'll then have Laura join us to hear about Shamrock Capital, which is the strategic investor in Adweek, and then hear a little bit about Shamrock's portfolio companies. And then together here between Laura and Juliette, the future as they see it together, and how Shamrock is a partner for Adweek on its strategic growth initiatives going forward. We'll finish off with some, we'll hear a bit more about the future as it holds for Adweek and Shamrock, and then finish off with some Q&A, and appreciate all the questions that have been submitted by our registered attendees. So without further ado, we'll begin, Juliette, with, we have here a timeline of your illustrious career leading up to your current role as the CEO of Adweek. And what we can see is that you had, certainly success with large global broadcast media companies, likes of HBO, Viacom, and NBCU. And then you transitioned into CEO of a streaming audio platform, TuneIn, and so have culminated in your position at Adweek today. So perhaps maybe begin, talk to us about, were there particular milestones in your career that you thought had launched you into another level and really helped you to grow to the position that you are today?
Thanks so much again for having me. And, I would say that in terms of milestones that launched, I feel very blessed that my foundation, and I think as a CEO or any leader of any company, being grounded in the customer is really critical. And so, and to some degree, I'm surprised there aren't more CEOs that come out of the marketing practice as opposed to other areas for that reason. And so, my experience across all of the companies that you mentioned afforded me the ability to be a real expert across every demo. At Viacom, we like to say it was cradle to grave because it was Nickelodeon to TV land. And then when I went to NBC Universal, it was sports, Hispanic media, broadcasting, et cetera. And I was steeped in both the ad model as well as the distribution space. I would say the biggest milestone for me to get to where I was today is I left NBC Universal because I wanted to own a P&L and get into an environment that had more velocity of decision making and speed and impact and something so more entrepreneurial. So I actually went to TuneIn first as the CMO and the person responsible for driving and growing the subscription business. And through that experience, being at a smaller company, running what was the second revenue stream and turning it into the leading revenue stream, and moving the business forward, I was given the opportunity to run the business. And did that for about a year and a half, helped facilitate a change in ownership and a sale, and then came back from the West Coast to my roots in New York, and was fortunate enough to be called about the position at Adweek.
Great. So it sounds like one of the real insightful takeaways here is that, having a clear understanding of the customer and ultimately the customer experience and how to drive that, as you said, what really fundamentally drives most of these businesses, particularly media businesses, but many other consumer, related businesses, is having a clear understanding of how, what is important to customers and how to grow that customer experience.
And I would just add to that, Michael, understanding when you're on the inside of the business, I really view marketers as the central nervous system for companies. And so it's not just about understanding a marketing campaign. You have to be the steward of the entire customer journey. And so that means product, tech, data, all of that to make sure that you're delivering.
Yeah, that might be one of the main reasons why a lot of the CMOs have becoming a lot more critical to the organization and that customer experience. And I'm sure much of our audience would agree. The ad agencies and marketing tech companies that are leading these businesses recognize. But I think large global organizations are realizing that the customer is really critical, and ensuring the customer experience and that success has become really important.
If you're not customer first, the money won't follow.
Yeah, exactly. And so could you talk a little bit about, so they're very different organizations that you've been a part of, right? They're very large global media companies, and then TuneIn, which is more of a, venture-backed, where, as you said, much faster pace. And then, Adweek, which is, still of, great scale and size, but not of the, like a large global media company. So, how has been your experience among the different organizations?
I'd have to say they've all been really critical to where I am today, and I wouldn't do my career differently. The discipline and the rigor that you learn at the bigger media companies and the exposure that you get was invaluable. But I have to say, when I left TuneIn, and Laura certainly knows this, there were other opportunities that I had, and they were bigger companies. And aside from my incredible long-term devotion to Adweek as having been the audience for a really long time, what appealed to me is the fact that you, at a company of this size, that the business is significant and profitable, but the brand really outweighs the business, which means that outsizes the business, which means there's such great opportunity here to be able to be in that smaller, more nimble environment to grow such an exciting business was just an offer I couldn't refuse.
Are there differences in your mind between, Adweek, which is the largest portion of the business, I believe, is print and publications, versus coming from the broadcast, cable and video side?
Well, it's interesting because, that is one of the misnomers about Adweek. We are no longer just a magazine.
Right.
And the reality is that that's probably, we have an enormous audience and enormous loyalty,
Yeah.
but print is actually not the leading
Yeah.
area
Yeah.
for us. And so, what is not different is I've been in ad-supported networks, so I understand the value of working with strategic partners
Yeah.
and creating real value, and understanding consumer trends across platforms is really valuable because it's helped us grow new products and make sure, regardless of what format and platform we're on, we're delivering the right experience. So Adweek today really is like a media company.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great segue into as we move on here. Certainly that the business has been been in business for over 40 years or so. Like you said, you have an enormous audience, over 3 million readers per month. And obviously, and the company was acquired and invested by Shamrock, 2 years ago. Could you, in your words, how do you describe Adweek? And if you could, share with us an overview of Adweek from your perspective.
Sure. So I think starting off with what we view as our mission is probably a great place to start. So
Right.
we view our mission as to inspire, connect, and guide the global marketing ecosystem to navigate the future. And that is what defines all of our decisions and where we are moving going forward. In terms of, what that means in terms of what we deliver for our audience, the fact that we have 40 plus years of having the most incredible reputation from an editorial and a journalistic standpoint, that is very much the root of who we are. And, our commitment is both from an editorial standpoint, as well as the other content that we create, to make sure in this environment, in the marketing ecosystem, the velocity of change is staggering.
Yeah.
And what marketers and people who are not marketers but need to understand the marketing ecosystem need to understand on a daily basis is staggering. And so we are committed across multiple platforms to make sure that we are providing the depth of analysis and the education and the who, what, when, where, and how to help people not only do their jobs better, but also to grow in their jobs and to move forward within their companies and their careers.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit more about the different platforms and different experiences and what Adweek is, and also how you connect those experiences and to a unified audience?
Yeah, so similar to a media company, it is important that the content that you have is in all the places that your audience is.
Yeah.
And that the format and the messaging and the nature of that content is consistent with what they expect from that platform. So within social, you want something more snackable. Within a podcast, people want more detail and insight. With our events, they want the insights and the knowledge, but they want that connection to meet one another and to share ideas. So we obviously have through lines across all that we work through, but we tailor it to those platforms. So big digital presence, newsletters, podcasts, events, every platform that a consumer wants to experience and get content from is where we are.
Excellent. Okay. So you made a decision 2 years ago for, Shamrock Capital. Shamrock Capital acquired the business 2 years ago, right? You became the CEO about a year ago. Could you talk about sort of the transition, or what was the rationale for the business at the time to take on Shamrock as an investor?
Well, I mean, first of all, Shamrock was actually, and this is not because I work with her every day and she hired me. So I'm not just saying this because of that. But Shamrock was actually a big reason why I took the job.
Yeah.
because their expertise in this arena, I knew was going to help us move the business forward because there is, even though Adweek is very multi-platform, there's a real opportunity for transformation
Yeah.
within the business as well as growth and expansion. And so it was really critical to know that not only the depth of expertise, but success that Shamrock brings was a partner. And so that was a very big part of it for me.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll move along a little bit here, and because now we'll take a look at your audience and your advertisers. So could you tell us about who your audience is? Who is it that reads and experiences Adweek across all the different platforms? How do you look at it?
Yeah, so the audience is very much people that have marketing in their title.
Yeah.
And they are from the agency side, they're from the brand side, they're from B2B, they're from tech. And that people that just recognize they don't have marketing in their title, but they need to understand what all the drivers are. And so we have an incredibly loyal and robust audience, and one that we continue to grow and even open up the aperture on a regular basis. In terms of our strategic partners and advertisers, we are fortunate to work with not only all the top and leading companies within each of the verticals, whether it be media, MarTech, ad tech, digital, et cetera, but also, the up and coming companies that are trying to break in and get access to the depth and breadth of decision makers and evangelists that we have on our platform.
Interesting. And so when you look at, let's talk about the audience for a moment. Are there certain segments that you see as growing better than others? And how do you look at the different segmentation of the different audience in terms of either?
We are definitely classroom to boardroom. And that is because people like me start with Adweek at the beginning of their careers and stay very loyal to it. We absolutely over-index in the senior level and above. And where we are seeing our audience grow is going beyond the incredible foundation we have with CPG brand marketers and agencies to we're seeing a real broadening from B2B tech and opening up the aperture. And that is certainly important to us to make sure that we are inclusive of the entire ecosystem.
Yeah. And also, do you look at segmentation in terms of any particular verticals, like healthcare as an example, and also geographically, maybe you can just talk about, how important it is for you to be, to expand, where the concentration of your audience is geographically, and if it's important to expand beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a tremendous amount of people outside the US that, come and read and follow what we're doing. We do have a bureau in the UK and have expanded even with events in the UK. But we are primarily right now US based and focused, and that is across the board. And so if you look at the audience that reads us, it goes across every vertical from healthcare to finance to packaged goods across the board, because what we provide is real marketing insight and exposure that is valuable regardless of which sector you're coming from.
Yep. And so let's move into the advertisers and the sponsors. So talk a bit more, or maybe you could elaborate on what sort of relationships do you have with the advertisers, and what is the value that you offer to them other than obviously the impressions?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we absolutely view our advertisers as partners.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have started this year that was really important to me, and certainly how I experienced partnerships at all my other previous companies, is to be more consultative. I'm going to age myself in using the expression selling spots and dots, but we have an incredible roster of opportunities that are on the menu. But what we really want to do is we want to grow with all of these companies and help them grow. So we are taking very strategic consultative approaches, really understanding where do they want to grow awareness and brand? Where do they need lead generation and growth? And as part of that, in addition to the offerings that we have that anyone can participate in, we do a lot of bespoke partnerships with people to really help expand and drive their KPIs.
Mm-hmm. And how much growth do you see in, let's say, branded content for that? Is there a lot of interest in that, and is that seem to be a growing area, or not necessarily?
In terms of with what we offer, yes, branded content is one of the areas we absolutely see significant growth in. We launched a podcast network. Yep. Earlier this year. We see a lot of interest in that area as well, and of course, events and our even more smaller bespoke events where we can really put these brands in the room with the decision makers. Continue to be really important offerings for our advertisers.
And do many of your partners look for cross platform experiences and look at Adweek as the full, all the multi-platform, omni-channel platform through the podcast, through the digital print, and everything else, and experience?
Yeah, I mean the bigger, more sophisticated partners absolutely view it that way. I think that that is absolutely something that we've been trying to help other advertisers see, that no different than if you were buying consumer as opposed to B2B, it has to be omni-channel. You need to be on different platforms. So 1 + 1 = 5.
Yeah. Any particular examples that you can share in terms of clients that you think have been particularly successful working with you?
Well, I mean, I think I'd like to say they've all been successful because they all keep coming back.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But I mean, what I would say is maybe I would call out a smaller, more up and coming client that we've been working with, because obviously the Amazons and the Facebook and the Metas, we've been doing really significant and holistic approaches to their business. But within the creator economy, there's a great company called Whaler that is really leading the way. And, in addition to them being involved in podcasts and buying digital, we really launched a very strategic partnership with them last year at Cannes, where, we went together to Cannes and they brought a ton of creators and we brought our editorial might and curated and crafted an incredible experience for marketers with, panel upon panel of really inspiring and valuable information.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And so, as you mentioned before, you have, much of your audience is very, although you cut across from classroom to boardroom, as you said, you have a lot of senior, executives. And so LinkedIn, would seem to stand out as a particular strong platform. Could you talk a little bit about, how Adweek participates, in LinkedIn or any other of the social platforms?
Yeah, I mean, listen, LinkedIn has their LinkedIn education and a lot of their own products that they want to get in front of CMOs and decision makers up and down the path to be integrated into the toolkit that these marketers are using, and they absolutely see us as a valuable gateway into those places.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so we'll move on a little bit here and now talk about strategic growth opportunities. So as you consider both organic or potentially, acquisition opportunities to grow or significantly grow the business. Could you talk about where you see opportunities for growth for Adweek?
Sure. One of the reasons why I was so excited to come to Adweek was that Laura and the rest of Shamrock had a similar vision on where Adweek could and should go, which was to become a real end-to-end solution for marketers, whether it's from boardroom to classroom to being able to provide insights to connecting people to education to helping them find their other jobs. And so many of this, like the actionable insights, the experience, connection, education, talent, we are doing in some form or fashion already. And so, what we're doing, right now we're maniacally focused on organic growth because, as I mentioned earlier, the brand is exponentially larger than the very thriving and growing business. So there's a lot of room for growth there. But at the same time, given this vision of this end-to-end, we know that there are areas within this chart that we would be better off buying than building. And so that will be something that will be moving in on like phase 2.
Okay. And maybe you could elaborate on some of the areas here. You have actionable insights, experience, connection, education, and talent, and obviously, supported and fueled by data and tech. Could you elaborate on some of these areas and what they mean to you?
Yeah. So the actionable insights is our heritage, right? That's a lot of that is the editorial journalism, but the path that we've started to move in is not just, and this is a change, but we don't want to just report on what's happening. We want to be ahead of it. And we want to be able to do what we're calling more practical journalism and thought leadership, where we are able to really share the what, where, and how, and go deeper on the topics and the agendas that we as experts in the area see as critical for marketers, and to set that agenda. And then, experiences, that's Pharrell sitting on our stage. He kissed me 4 times, so I was very happy. Making sure that we are providing opportunities for people to connect and be inspired in unique ways. And our event business is a very big portion of our current business that is only growing and really exciting. So, keeping an opportunity, you can read these actionable insights. You can also experience them firsthand with people. The connection is the peer-to-peer. When you go to these events or digitally, the fact that, you can have someone from GM or Procter & Gamble to Expedia to Estee Lauder, all in the room together, because they all are focused on the topic that we're talking about. Being able to help introduce and connect people to an even greater degree than we already are, we see as a real opportunity. Education, we currently do and provide opportunities for people to learn and go deeper on topics that are new to them. This is an area that we really believe we can, there's some white space areas for us to really expand. And then talent is, also an area for us to expand. If you've got this incredible audience that we have of the most talented people, how do you connect them with the open jobs? And the open opportunities. And so that's that end to end.
Really interesting. Yeah. So one of them, education, for example. So obviously beyond the subscriptions and that we're all familiar with, for Adweek and the experiences themselves, but you think that there's a much deeper area of learning, whether it be courses and other things that Adweek can provide.
We do. And, right now, we have some, it's a little premature share it, but we definitely have some theories and theses on where in a crowded space, given our audience and who we are, where we can add some real value from an education standpoint. And our goal is to start launching some of that in 2023 and betaing that.
Yeah, a lot of these certainly make a lot of sense. The talent, as you mentioned, you have a great community, in the, advertising marketing ecosystem, and to be able to connect them and enable job creation and opportunities or networking, then, certainly you're well positioned for that as a platform.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously experiences is an interesting one, given that, we spent a couple of years, in our homes in the last 2 years. But I would imagine that now, how do you see experiential and in-person events and conferences? How do you see that coming back now that we're, post-pandemic era?
Yeah, I mean, we actually have an event happening right now. I'm the only one in the office because the entire team is a little further uptown at our Next Tech event, which is happening right now. But we've seen an absolute resurgence in people coming back to events. People have been hungry, to your point, after so many years of being isolated. But we still believe that there's a hybrid. We want to have these in-person events. We'll continue to build on them. But some can, like this, be virtual and create real opportunities. But the other thing is that we are going to start not being fixed just in New York and LA or Miami, and start taking our experiences in smaller, more intimate ways to markets that we haven't necessarily been in before. We certainly recognize with the economy and T&E and just people not necessarily wanting to travel as much as they used to, because they've learned the value of being closer to home through the pandemic. So we are going to be testing new event models and new markets and take it on the road.
Terrific. Well, I'm sure all those the audience that follows Adweek will certainly appreciate that when you come closer to their home market.
Yeah, they can tell us where they want us to come.
Exactly. Okay, so this has been really great insight on Adweek. We're now going to move on here and have Laura join us. So Laura is a partner at Shamrock Capital. Laura, thanks so much for joining us here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And so, we've been fortunate to have known Laura for quite some time and have seen the success not only of Laura, directly investing, but of Shamrock. And so, Shamrock is, as some of you may know, was originally founded by Roy Disney. And so, Laura, could you talk to us and give us an overview of Shamrock from your perspective?
Sure, happy to. So thanks, everybody. It's so great to be here today. Juliette is a tough act to follow, but I will do my best to try and
This is where the smarts comes in.
So a little background on Shamrock, just to give people some context and history in terms of who we are. As Michael alluded to, we originally started as part of the Roy Disney family office. So just like Adweek, we've been around for over 40 years. Our heritage and history is part of the family office. That's where we started. That's sort of how we built up really deep expertise in relationships and experience in our sectors. We actually spun out from the family office back in 2011. So we've evolved from being part of the family umbrella to being a more traditional private equity firm in terms of our structure and approach. And today we have over $4 billion of assets under management. We've got 2 strategies under the Shamrock umbrella. We have a private equity fund, our growth fund, and then we have a content strategy, which is very complementary and synergistic to what we're doing on the private equity side. We've always maintained a very specific focus on media, entertainment, and communications from an end market perspective, going all the way back to the Disney roots and heritage. And really, for us, I think this is really important. So this is something I would call out specifically in terms of who we are, and something that we think is important in terms of not only being able to identify and find the right companies to invest in and drive great returns for our investors, but also hopefully to be a really great partner and value add. I know, Juliette, you talked about this a little bit when you were sort of talking about Shamrock investing in Adweek even before you joined. But for us, we really try and pick our spots. We want to partner with leading businesses in our sectors that are playing on growth trends and themes and areas of the market that we're excited about. And then we want to add value. We want to be not just a capital source, but also a good partner to those companies to help them evolve and grow over time.
Okay, great. Well, that's really helpful. Certainly you are, we've always, believed that you're extraordinarily well positioned or add a lot more value than other private equity groups in that you have such a strong heritage in the media, entertainment, communications area. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that. So there's a few things here that you highlighted here, your partnership mentality, your industry expertise, and your operational experience. Could you talk a little bit about the partnership mentality? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think those three pillars at the bottom are critical. That's absolutely the way that we think about the way that we work with our portfolio companies and how we make our spots. So first on the partnership mentality, that's really us coming in as a partner to our management teams and to our companies and actually working alongside them and trying to be value add. And not from an operational perspective, we're not trying to come in and micromanage and run the businesses, but we want to be helping think strategically about where the business is going, helping set the vision, the strategy, support M&A where it's appropriate, and really collaborate with our teams and our management teams. That partnership aspect is incredibly important. Juliette and I certainly, we talk all the time. We work closely together on the vision and strategy for the business, and we can be a strategic sounding board and counsel to our teams. And so I think that one is incredibly important. I'm glad you called that one out.
Yeah, sure. So many of our audience, as they're grow to a certain scale, they will look to to investors and to contemplate finding a strategic investor or a private equity group such as Shamrock. So in your mind, could you talk about what are the criteria and qualifications that are important to you as you assess investment opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll look at it through the Shamrock lens, and I think the way that we think about it is, first, what are big themes and trends in our industries that we're excited about? And we want to partner with companies that are playing on those trends and themes. We're very growth oriented. And so we're trying to think about not just where is the industry today, but where is it going 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road? And how do we participate in that growth and that opportunity? So certainly categories of the market where we see exciting growth, momentum, and opportunity, that's sort of the first place that we look. But certainly sort of the expertise of those leadership teams, market leadership in their categories, which I think is really important, right? We want to partner with industry leaders. We see on average, I think it's over 300 deals a year, different investment opportunities that we have that sort of fit our size and stage criteria. We only typically invest in 3 to 5 on an average year. And so we're really looking for those leaders in their categories that have real differentiation, real expertise, best-in-class relationships with clients, and whether it's a services or technology business, because we'll look at both, we really want them to provide some sort of sticky value add to those clients.
Okay, great. So you are unique among some other groups in that you're investing in both services and technology companies. So that is certainly one distinction. Could you talk about, obviously there's different parameters that you look at in terms of leadership and financial metrics and other, and let's say kind of market leadership. Let's just talk about some of the financial metrics. So as you look at companies, could you talk a bit about the financial metrics in terms of growth and profitability and other things that are important to you?
Yeah, no, I think that's certainly another criteria that we use when we're thinking about investment. So from a Shamrock perspective, we're investing out of our 5th private equity fund, which is $1 billion fund, and we'll do 10 to 15 investments out of that fund. So when you think about an equity check, typically it's on the low end, a minimum of about $30 million, and we'll go up to 100 or 150. And so we are looking for businesses that are either later stage growth or businesses where it would warrant with that check size, a controlled transaction. I do think we're unique in that we're fairly flexible in terms of we'll do both minority and majority.
Yeah.
Either way, we partner with those companies in the same way, whether we own, whether we're coming in as a minority investor in a later stage growth round to support that next inflection point for the business, or we're coming in a controlled transaction, recap with a founding team or a buyout. But from a financial perspective, it really depends on their revenue model is the way that we think about it. If it's a more traditional services business where hopefully there's some nice visibility, but they may not have truly recurring revenue over time, we would look for scale, and typically those businesses would need to be cash flow positive. So we would typically look for, at least 25 to 30 million of revenue and something like 5 to 10 million of EBITDA. Sure. And then we'll go well north of that when we think about sort of scale and more established businesses. If it's a truly recurring SaaS technology platform type business, then we look at it through the more traditional lens of ARR. And I would say we want to make sure that there's product market fit, that you can actually see real traction in the industry with clients and with revenue. So, there's no hard and fast rule, but I would say typically if it's 10 to 15 million of ARR, they're still trying to kind of figure out that product market fit and get more established. And that might be a little bit early for us. When you start to see something in that 10 to $20 million ARR range and growing really nicely and very favorable unit economics, then it starts to be a really nice stage for us to come in. Because again, whether it's a more sort of traditional cash flow generating business or a technology business, we try and come in at that inflection point of growth and not just be a partner in terms of working with the teams and being strategic and being a sounding board, but we can also help sort of the last thing on this page here, the operational experience, is we try and help them think about what are some of the building blocks, the things that these companies need to put in place to continue to support growth at scale. And that can be the operations, the sales and marketing function, finance, HR, pretty important functions when you think about scaling those organizations. Sometimes we see businesses that have invested very heavily in the product and tech, but some of those other functions are early stage. And so, for us, it's really about how do we help sort of build that fundamental sort of that transformational scaling for those businesses. But those are some of I wouldn't say it's a hard and fast rule, but some of the rough framework and parameters from a financial perspective.
Yeah. And what about, timing and also your inclination towards growing through acquisition versus organically? Are there particular timeframes that you like to hold your investments for? Or how do you determine the timing of up to an exit or liquidity?
Yeah, like many private equity firms, on average, we typically hold investments for 3 to 5 years. But again, we want to make sure that there's not a clock ticking and that we're not forcing something. We want to exit, or we want the next chapter for that business when it feels like naturally the company is at that next stage and they're ready for another partner, whether it's another private equity firm coming in or a strategic buying the business. So we've had businesses that have way outperformed expectations and surprised everybody and been ready for that next stage of growth and that next partner within 18 to 24 months. That's pretty unusual. We've also held businesses longer than 4 or 5 years because the company still needed there were certain initiatives and certain opportunities that we wanted to go capitalize on before we went to that next stage. So, Harlem Globetrotters, for example, or Mobility are 2 examples. If we held those, I think each for 7 or 8 years, and that was okay. There wasn't anything wrong with that. It's not about a hard and fast rule on timing, but at some point, obviously, we look for generating a return for our investors. So you can think of it on average as about 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. And any particular inclination for acquisition, growth through acquisition versus organic growth?
Yeah, we certainly, first, again, going back to sort of wanting to play in growth parts of our categories, typically the businesses that we're investing in have nice organic growth opportunities. That was one thing about Adweek in particular that we were really excited about, is the fact that there were so many different growth levers as you think about transforming the business from the sort of legacy and heritage of being defined as a trade publication to a broader platform and ecosystem in a space. So there's typically very nice organic growth opportunities with the businesses that we're partnering in. So we're not often reliant on M&A, but we do like that M&A is a lever to augment growth or augment capabilities. And so we typically look at it for 2 different criteria. One is just, are there sort of ways to grow faster by adding in team, client base, maybe it's the same service or capability set as what the business already has, but it's a way to grow faster and do more of what we're doing with great people and great clients sort of being added to the mix? Or is there a capabilities expansion that M&A can provide? So as Juliette was talking about with education or research or some of the new product offerings that we think about with Adweek, are there ways to bring in new capabilities, new experiences, new skill sets to the organization to do that in the best in class way and move faster? And so, a lot of our businesses, we do look at M&A as a lever to complement the organic growth.
Great. So that's actually, very helpful to understand, why it's, we're fortunate to have both of you here to understand your rationale and why you're excited about Adweek. With that, let's segue into some of your other portfolio companies. So you have had, all of these cut across, media, marketing, market media, entertainment, and communications, right? Are there any particular investments that you'd like to highlight that you think are good sectors of interest, like you said, and that you think are doing particularly well?
Yeah, it's always hard to pick a few, but because I have a lot of favorites on this list. But I think stepping back, like you said, if you look at this page generally, marketing and advertising is a category, a big subsector within our industry focus. So we've done a lot over time. You can see a number of agency investments. Every single agency that's on this page, there was a very specific reason from a growth and from a market perspective why we were excited about that. So with Ad Results Media, it was what we saw happening in the podcast space and the opportunity for advertisers to move into that media. With something like W Promote, the huge rise of performance marketing and the shift to social and search and other performance marketing channels, there was some huge sort of growth trends behind that category. Some recent investments that I would call out, just when you look at some of the investments that we've made this year, in that category that are playing on big themes. One is EDO. So, as many people that are listening today have probably seen, CTV as a huge growth area of the market, and particularly there's a lot of innovation happening in the measurement side of CTV, and EDO is doing very unique things in terms of how they're not just looking at sort of the top of the funnel reach and frequency, but actually measuring and behavioral outcomes that result from seeing an ad, whether it's on linear or over the top. Something like a VidMob is actually really interesting as well, that is really trying to bring data and technology capabilities to the creative process. So not trying to replace sort of the human element, but actually augment the human element through technology and data. And then Answer Lab is one on here that I would call out too, which is playing, I'd sort of at the highest level say it's playing on broader digital transformation trends, which are very favorable. And I know a lot of people have been talking about for a while. They specifically do UX research. So they are helping feed research into very large, sophisticated product design and development teams at companies like Meta, Google, Amex, et cetera, which is a really important function to make sure you're driving that customer experience right. And then the last one I would just call out is Highwire, which, they're a PR and communications agency. Really, as you think about the intersection, this convergence of marketing and communications, there's huge opportunity to start thinking more holistically about that function in a much more digital, always-on, proactive way. And that team is very innovative and digital in terms of how they're doing it. They also have piece around technology and healthcare. So that gives you a flavor of just some of the recent investments we've made and why there's very specific trends and themes behind them.
Yeah, and as we can see, there's agencies, there's media groups like Adweek, and then even some technology companies like VidMob, for example. By the way, congratulations on your recent exit of W Promote to ZMC. So
thank you. Yeah, we're excited about that. I think for the team and the business, it's going to be a great next chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you made recent investments in Answer Lab, and then in some of these other. VidMob also was a fairly recent one. I think was this year. So congratulations on your continuing development of the portfolio. So maybe one more question, as for both of you, as you now as partners and as you're looking to grow the business, how do you think about success? And are there certain magnitudes or milestones in terms of whether it be revenue or profitability or an ultimate exit? How do you come together in alignment on what is your alignment and what would be success for you both?
I'm going to let you kick that off, Laura.
You want me to start? Okay. Well, you should supplement. But yeah, I think there's multiple levers that we collectively, in partnership with Juliette and the broader management team, I think would use to define success. And there's short-term and long-term goals. And some of those are financial goals and metrics, and ultimately sort of driving enterprise value for the business. But I think it really starts fundamentally with how Juliette talked about this core focus on audience, right? And this is a really important theme, I think, with B2B media generally, is we really need to continue to own and serve our very premium audience. That was really the thesis for Shamrock coming in, was not that Adweek is a media company and we can better sort of monetize the different product sets that they have, but actually that they're a gatekeeper to this premium audience of marketing decision makers. And with all of the convergence and change, fragmentation and complexity that's happening in the industry, which we see every day as investors, and Juliette's living within the company, is there's tremendous opportunity to help those marketing decision makers navigate that change. And then all of these different constituencies in the industry want to reach that CMO or that marketing decision maker, whether it's an agency, a media company, or a MarTech business, technology business. And so I think first and foremost, we want to continue to grow and strengthen and serve our core audience. I think that's fundamental, is maintaining that focus and that premium nature. Adweek has always been a premium brand. That was something that was very compelling to us as well. Then I think it would be, how do we continue to expand the product set for that audience in a way that we're serving them cross-channel and holistically in a way that meets their needs and where they spend time. And then I would say it's the financial goals in terms of continuing to drive strong growth, strong margins, expand and build a bigger, more scaled platform. I think all three of those are incredibly important. And Juliette, I don't know if you'd add anything to that too.
Yeah, I would just add, because I completely agree, and it's so great to have a partner that we are on the same page. The one thing that I would add to that is really gratifying in this journey that Laura and I are on together is that when you talk about super serving our audience, and obviously the impact that will have on our growth and all of that, what is really gratifying is all these areas when you think about becoming an end-to-end solution that Laura and I have plans to move into in a deeper way. The audience gives us permission to do this, and actually has already started to welcome us in those areas because of our brand, because of our tradition, and because of who we are. And so it's exciting when you see that and know that the door is open, and now it's for us to just deliver and make sure that we fulfill their expectations. We're not having to elbow our way in somewhere that they don't already want us, which is great.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's exciting the platform that you built because you have an enormous, audience of really, high level, a lot of senior executives. And then, like you said, from classroom to boardroom, you have all the corporate, all the sponsors and the brand sponsors. And then you have all these experiences across, in person, podcast, digital, print, and everything else. And so to bring that all together, it's sounds really interesting and exciting as you then talk about what are opportunities of growth to fuel more education, more experiences, and to kind of build into the job and career opportunities and all of it. Yeah.
I feel like what we've accomplished this year is we've got all the puzzle pieces now in the right place.
Right. And importantly, like you said, you have the integrity and credibility of delivering, and the permission of the audience to build on the platform that you built.
Yep.
Yep. All right, terrific. So we're at the time where we have some Q&A. So fortunately, we have some really interesting questions that have been submitted by our guests. So the first one is by Ben Ingersoll, who's the co-founder of Minds and Assembly, which is an agency that has grown quite well. And Ben's question is, in 3 years, how will we define the real value of an agency? How do you see agencies evolving and the value that they'll provide in a few years from now?
Sure. Laura, you want me to take that?
Yeah, you can go. Go ahead.
So big fan of agencies. Thank you for the question. I feel like it's kind of what old is new again. So my first job was was working on Ivory Soap at Saatchi & Saatchi. I just didn't allow you to go that far back in my CV because people can figure out my age, Michael. But that was my first job, and at that point in time, you didn't have companies having to go to multiple agencies. Today, there's a creative agency, there's a tech agency,
Sure.
And so brands need to have multiple places. I believe, similar to what we believe is going to be important for the marketing ecosystem as a whole, in silo busting. And by that, it's like there's not performance marketing and brand marketing, there is marketing. I think that the agencies that can be more fully integrated and provide a more holistic approach across data, tech, and media to create these seamless and connected experiences. I think that's going to be really critical.
Excellent. And Laura, anything that you want to add to that since you're investing in agencies?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in with a couple of additional thoughts. I mean, we're also big fans of agencies, and we partnered with a number of them. As you guys could see previously, there's a lot of agencies in our portfolio today. I think agencies play a really key role in the ecosystem. We've seen the sort of trend of in-housing and brands trying to sort of insource and bring everything in-house. It's really hard to do that because often that's not their core competency to stay on top of everything that's happening from a channel perspective and to be able to hire the best-in-class talent to sort of continue to evolve. So for me, I think agencies need to continue to stay ahead of it and provide sort of expertise around established channels that are very complex to manage, new and innovative channels, and how all that integrates together. And I think also bringing in sort of new tools and capabilities, data, technology to augment the services and the creative aspects will be really additive. And they can be really well positioned to be that best in class partner that has the expertise. And then the in-house teams don't have to stay ahead of everything themselves. I mean, there's certain large-scale organizations that can afford to do that, but for many brands, it's very challenging to do that. So I think they need a partner. They need somebody who has those capabilities and expertise and talent to help them evolve.
Yeah. It's sort of the joke of our business is when we started, we would focus on digital agencies, and we were the first, and and that mattered. But today, to exist and to thrive and to survive, you have to have digital capabilities. You have to have data driven, and even Juliette, to your point about being a CMO or managing brands, you have to be able to enable data and make sense of the data and analyze it and provide thoughtful insights from the data to not only from a brand and marketing perspective, but even as a business standpoint, as you said earlier.
Yeah, and I would echo what Laura said, just as a long-term customer of agencies. They are critical. Companies cannot always have the expertise, domain expertise that they need. The ability to hire all of that. And so agencies are not going anywhere. They are going to remain critical. And I think it again, given the kind of change in the ecosystem, for them to be able to break out of legacy patterns and models on how they work with their partners is going to be valuable and critical.
So we have a final question here, and this is relevant in the CTV space. Laura, that you're an investor in EDO, and so this is from Leif Welch, who's the CEO and founder of Jamloop, which you may know. And Jamloop is a CTV and OTT media and attribution platform, media buying platform. And so Leif's question is, given the strong CTV tailwinds in terms of growth, coupled with the general economic slowdown, where do you think CTV will come in terms of overall 2023 growth?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love this question because CTV has been a dedicated theme and area of focus for us for probably 3 or 4 years at least now at Shamrock, and that culminated with making the EDO investment this year. But also, we've actually been playing the CTV trend and theme through multiple investments in our portfolio. So, I think actually you're going to continue to see acceleration of growth on the CTV and OTT side in this macro environment. You take the overall, we look at it as sort of how big is the market for linear and OTT and CTV collectively. And it's a huge market, right? It's, I think, $85 billion plus when you think about the size of this industry. And with the change in consumer behavior, streaming growth, sort of need for, sort of better, more targeted advertising, reaching consumers where they're spending time, there's huge opportunity with CTV. And there's a lot of different ways to play that. I mean, obviously, you could play it for data and measurement. Adweek is covering and helping educate the industry on what's happening with CTV as a key pillar and vertical. WMO, which we talked about earlier, CTV was a performance channel. They looked at it as a way for marketers who maybe were sort of boxed out of linear TV because it was sort of cost prohibitive for them to participate in that ecosystem, can now start to participate in the TV ecosystem through CTV. And so there's so many different opportunities, and I think you're going to continue to see that accelerate next year in this macro environment.
Absolutely. Juliette, anything you'd like to add to that?
I completely agree. I think it's going to be an interesting space for us to watch over the next couple of years, given the proliferation of players and the different models, and looking at what is ad supported and not. And so, as Laura said, it's really a very critical space for us, and something that we continue to follow because it is somewhat the culmination of so many different trends across all of marketing in one place.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we're at the top of the hour here, so it's time to thank you both very much. We really appreciate the insights that you shared. It's not only exciting to see where Adweek has come to in terms of a platform, and like we talked about, the audience and the sponsors and everything, and the platforms that you're bringing together, and the opportunity Adweek, but also just to see the alignment between Shamrock as a strategic partner investor with Adweek, and so to see that strategic alignment and the obvious compatibility in terms of your strategic outlook for the business. I congratulate you both, and we wish you more growth and
thank you so much
opportunities.
for having us, Michael. This was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
I'll take it on the road with Laura any day.
I know there's so much more we could talk about. We need a part 2, but yeah, thank you so much, Michael, for hosting us. This was a lot of fun to start talking about what we're doing and a lot of opportunity ahead. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much. And so we just would like to remind our audience that the full recording is available at madisonla.tv. So you can see the full session that will be soon live up, and please register for upcoming events. Our next guest will be in January 30th. So we welcome Tariq Hassan, who is the Chief Marketing Officer for McDonald's. So really excited to have Tariq join us for our next session on madisonla.tv. Thanks so much, everyone, and hope you have a great day.